after the stone's been rolled away. The stone was not rolled away to let Jesus out. The stone was rolled away to let the women in. Okay? They went in then and could see he's really gone. He is gone. They saw it for themselves. It really happened just like he said it would. Church, let's embrace that in our lives today. When Jesus says he's going to do something, mark it down. He's going to do it. How many of us have said we're going to do something and we had the absolute 100% best intentions of doing it, but we didn't do it? Anybody besides me?
Once or twice.
Yeah. It's happened. I remember when my kids were really little and I told them, well, we'll go somewhere and we'll do something, and then something came up. Wasn't able to do it, you know. And I don't remember which one it was, probably Victoria, but they said, Dad, you lied. And I tried to explain to her, I didn't lie, I meant it when I said it, okay? It taught me then to change how I talk to my children, though, to try to tell them more often, well, okay, if everything goes okay, this is what we're going to do. Okay? But oftentimes, we have the best of intentions, and we just don't follow through. Oftentimes, we have the best of intentions, and things get in the way, and we're unable to follow through. Sometimes we have the best intentions, and we forget. But Jesus, he's in control of everything. So when he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. When he says he's never going to leave you or forsake you, then he's never going to go. There's nothing you can do. And trust me, I've done a lot of things in my past that I wish I hadn't done. But he never left me. When he says he's gone to prepare a place for us, and let me tell you, he's working on a building. He's working on a building. And he's preparing a place. When he says he's going to come back for us, then it means he's going to come back for us. Because he didn't stay dead, and he won't stay gone. Okay? That's a promise. Glory, that's an amazing thing. He's coming back. Sooner or later. So what does he then tell the women? We don't read that they went in. Maybe they were too afraid to go in. I don't know. But in this passage anyway, we don't read that they went in. And I'll be honest, I didn't double check the other Gospels to see if they record that. But he does tell them this. Once they realize that Jesus is gone, then go quickly. He says, come in and see. And after you've seen is the indication. Then go quickly and tell his disciples. He is risen from the dead, and indeed he is going ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there. Listen, I have told you. So, departing quickly from the tomb with fear and great joy, they ran to tell his disciples the news. Okay, couple of things. You got fear and joy together. That doesn't usually happen too often, does it? Okay? But again, after what they've experienced, there's some fear there, I'm sure, still. Okay? But great joy. But here's what I really love about this, I think, the most. What did they go and tell the disciples? What does it say they were going to do? They were going to go and tell the disciples what? The news! What news? These are the questions I'm asking. What news? That Jesus is risen. But had they seen Jesus? Not yet. But they already believed. They didn't think somebody took the body at this point. They didn't think that Jesus walked out, just because he wasn't quite dead. They believed. They believed. The first Easter, the first resurrection morning, this was the first. And you know what there wasn't? There were no bunnies. There were no eggs. There were no chocolate rabbits, which was always my favorite when I was a child. I know I'd probably share with everybody, but probably anybody listening online has not heard that I was a twisted little kid when my mother would always buy me a solid chocolate rabbit. Usually I think they were like 1 pound of chocolate. And I was always allowed, don't ask me why my parents allowed me to do this, okay? Because I don't know. And I have no idea where this came from either. Just my twisted little young mind. But I would always take a knife and cut off the head of the rabbit, put it in the freezer and save it until next Easter. Okay, I don't know why. Okay? But there was none of that, okay? I would be deprived of my sadistic torture to the chocolate bunny, because there was none of that the first Easter. There were no picnics. There were no barbecues. There was no special Easter dinners, okay? But there was a celebration. There was a celebration like none other. See, even for you and I, to some degree, Easter's always been there. But this was the first. This was unique in and of itself. So today, it made me think about this. I posted this on a live Facebook devotional just the other day. But we like to celebrate Easter. That's what we say, right? And a lot of people today, there's a lot of issues in our country, I know, because churches can't gather in mass to celebrate Easter and people are upset and everything. But I started to think about it, and I thought, I think really what we're upset about, and obviously I'm speaking in generalities here, but for a lot of us, I think what we're upset about is we're upset that we don't get to celebrate. It's not so much that we don't get to celebrate Easter, it's that we don't get to celebrate. Yeah. Okay? Because we like the celebration, I think, more than we like Easter. We just want an excuse to celebrate. And this is another excuse. We like holidays. Okay? Because on the first Easter, they didn't celebrate by hunting eggs. They didn't celebrate by giving Easter baskets. They celebrated by telling others that Jesus was risen. They celebrated by going to the disciples, a bunch of men holed up in an upper room, scared literally to death that they were going to be the next ones hung on the cross, totally depressed because their rabbi, teacher, friend, and the one they believed was the Messiah, but they didn't really even understand all that entailed, was dead. The first Easter, how they celebrated was, they took the gospel to the disciples, really. They took the gospel back to the disciples. And they were filled with fear and great joy. The empty tomb had turned their world upside down. Jesus had been dead, 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 dead. They knew he was dead. They expected him to be dead. And that's part of the reason they were filled with fear and great joy. Because a dead man had risen. Now, Jesus had raised the dead himself, right? So that he wasn't the first one. But he was the first one who rose himself from the dead. That was a whole different situation. And today, I couldn't help but think how in our nation today, we have a lot of people filled with fear. Never thought we'd be in this place that we were at today, the things we're facing. We have people depressed. Got a message from somebody just this morning, good brother, and he said, I think I'm depressed. Okay? And I didn't have much time to message him back. I just simply said, I'm praying for you. I've been there. Okay? We have people that are sad. We have people that are confused. A lot of confusing information out there. Let me tell you something. On this Easter morning, don't forget, if you're a child of God, in all of this stuff, you have reason to have joy. Because Jesus is still risen. Nothing changes that. We have great joy, not just to keep to ourselves, but to share. So let's be joyous today. I want to tell even those that I wish could be with us that aren't. I want to tell James and Nancy, be joyous today. Don't be sad that you're not here. Be joyous. Celebrate. Shout so loud your neighbors here that you've got something to celebrate today. To Dina and Jesse, celebrate. To Brenda, celebrate. Be joyous today. Be joyous. This is the day that we celebrate Jesus being raised. Nothing beats that. And celebrate Easter like they did. Share your joy today. And in verse 9, just then Jesus met them and said, greetings. When I did my sunrise devotional, I kind of laughed at that point too. I just think that is, for some reason, and I know again, I'm a little twisted in my mind, I get that, but I just find this so humorous and yet so much like Jesus. Because Jesus knew all along, right? He was going to be raised from the dead. He knew how this thing was going to turn out. And when he sees them, what does he say? He doesn't, you see what he doesn't say? Because I know that, like, if I had been raised from the dead and all of a sudden I showed up at my house, I'd be like, it's me! You know, I'd be making some big announcement, here I am! And what does Jesus say? It's equivalent to Jesus going, good morning, hi, hey, greetings. It's just so underwhelming in that sense, okay? Jesus isn't underwhelming, don't get me wrong, I already made that statement. He's always overwhelming. But his greeting is just so matter of fact. What did they do? How did they respond? They came up, took hold of his feet, and worshipped him. Ah, so beautiful. I just wish I could have been there and seen that. I wish I could have been there and done that, okay? I'll get that opportunity, though. I'll get that opportunity. I have absolutely no doubt that, there's all these things, we always say this. Everybody I've met has said this at one time or another. When I get to heaven, I'm going to ask Jesus this. In fact, I don't remember who it was. Might have been my son, because we were talking about mysteries the other day. And he goes, well, when I get to heaven, I ask Jesus whatever happened to Jimmy Hoffa, And, but all that stuff's going to go out the window at first. And I think we're going to respond just like these women did. We're going to fall at his feet, grab a hold of him and worship. And I'll tell you what, I've had some amazing times of worship, but nothing's going to beat that one. These are just a shadow of really what it's going to be like to worship at the feet of Jesus. And then I hope he's going to pick me up and give me a great big Jesus bear hug. Okay? And Jesus told them, do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to leave for Galilee and they will see me there. Now I want to ask you this question about this. Who did Jesus show himself to first? Who were the first people to see Jesus raised from the dead? The women. There were so many other choices, if you think about it. None of the disciples, right? Not even John. Not even John. John was there at the crucifixion, but he's not showing up at the tomb. You know what? Again, I don't know for sure, but from everything I read, I think the reason none of the disciples showed up the next morning to go there on Sunday not the next morning, but 3 days later to go to the tomb, they were afraid to get arrested. They were afraid that they were going to get caught. And so they were holed up scared. It's not even Nicodemus isn't there. We know Nicodemus was sort of a secret disciple, and at this point in time, he kind of became an unsecret disciple. Joseph of Arimathea could have shown up just to say he was going to check on his tomb, because it was his tomb that Jesus borrowed. Okay? None of them showed up. Just the women. And even the women didn't show up full of faith, remember. They showed up thinking that Jesus was going to be dead. But he showed himself to women. And this is important. It really, truly is important. Because in the culture of the day, the testimony of a woman was not considered valid. Okay? It wasn't even permissible in court. And since many have claimed that the resurrection story was made up, this would make no sense if that were true. If it was true that they were making up a false story to appear before women first would be ridiculous. Okay? You wouldn't have women be the first to give an eyewitness testimony of your story if you wanted to give your lie any credibility. You would have them appear to priests and rabbis. You would have them appear to the disciples. You would have them appear to well-known people in the community, men of upstanding reputation. That's what you would do. But they appeared to women. So to me, it's just the fact that he appears to women first, just one more proof that the resurrection is real. But the other thing I love about this is it tells me that Jesus, that God, he's not limited by culture. He does what he wants, when he wants, with who he wants. And to all my sisters out there, don't ever let anyone make you feel like a second-rate part of the body of Christ. Absolutely, I believe, we all know, I shouldn't say we all, because there's people out there who don't believe this, but men and women are different, right? They are different. And I believe even in the church, they have different roles. But that does not mean that they're not equal. And never forget that it was to women that Jesus first showed himself to, while the men were huddled in fear. I can tell you right now in my experience, my short life of 62 years, that there have been a lot of churches over the years that would have closed their doors if it was left up to the men to keep them open. Women have saved a lot of churches from closing the doors when they were the only faithful ones going. John Geiser gave me a book a couple weeks ago to read. Great little book. So far I've read two of that guy's books, and both of them are great. So, and they're short, they're not difficult to read. But the last chapter deals with the women experiencing the tomb, and the author writes this: they were the first at the cross, the first at the tomb, the first to hear the resurrection, the first to see the risen, glorious Son of God, the first to tell the Prince of Life's defeat of death. Think about that. They're the first people to get to tell the gospel. I mean, obviously, the gospel was told when Jesus was alive. But also, we know it takes on a different, what might we say, perspective when we realize it's told after the fact. They were the first one. And, I don't think he says this in the book, I don't remember now, but they were the first to worship the risen Savior. They got to worship Jesus first. Man, there's something good about that. All I can tell you is this: follow their example today. Sing some songs to him today. Give him glory this morning. We're not all gathered here today, but when you get home alone today sometime, or with your husband, with your wife, with your children, whatever it is, worship God. Just like the women did. Let's follow their example. And so we're going to come now to the final question. We've asked a lot of little different questions along the way. But why do we celebrate the resurrection anyway? Well, as I said, we celebrate it because it's foundational to the Christian faith. We celebrate the resurrection because, as we said earlier, without it, our faith, Paul writes, our faith will be vain, useless. We celebrate it because it's real. Those are all good reasons.